That's now 6:32, and welcome to everybody. And to those who may well be watching through YouTube that we don't normally see, that welcome to the meeting. Right. Apologies, Christine.
Chair, I've got a number of apologies tonight. Emma Prack, the MSYP, can't make it. James Slavin from NL Fairtrade Steering Group. Irene Lester from the Community Partnership Team. Christopher Loudon from Croy Community Hub. Paul Goodship from Social Work. Inspector Susan Ray, although we have somebody here in her place. And also Councillor Jones can't make it tonight.
Right, thanks very much, Christine. Right, item 3, a minute of previous meeting and matters arising. Right, is there anybody here to propose and second the meeting? Right, any proposers for the meeting? Anybody at the last meeting? No. Right.
I'm happy to propose, Bill. I'm happy to propose if nobody else is going to propose them.
Right. And I will second it, Matt. Sure. Now, matters arising from that meeting, I put in one item that since this is the beginning of the first meeting of 2023, I just wanted to maybe minute the appointment of the chairperson. Is that I've been chair for quite a time now, and I don't want to be hogging this hot seat. So if anybody in the community listening or reading the minutes would like to put their name forward for being chairperson, then could they contact Community Matters, Christine or Matt. Yes. But feeling that, I will keep doing chair until somebody decides that they would like to take on that role. Fiona, the next item was the NLC budget for 23-24. You're going to say a few words about that.
I am, and we should have, thank you, Chair, we should have an updated presentation from Elaine Kemp, which has detail on the savings. So I'm going to go through the slide pack that Elaine sent through, and hopefully that'll give you some good detail at the end related to the savings, which is quite important. And I know the Community Board was keen to see that. So Matt, if you can put the latest version of that presentation on the screen, I'll go through it. Okay, if you just want to, looks like Christine, you're sharing it. If you just want to go into slideshow mode then. Just so people can see the detail. Thank you. Okay, so moving on to the first slide is just to reiterate what we talked about earlier in the year in terms of the savings gap that the council is facing over the next 3 years. So the confirmed settlement now means that the council is facing at least a £65 million gap over the next 3 years, and that translates to the figure at the bottom for this year, so 28.254 million for 23-24. You want to move on to the next slide, Christine? So you've seen this slide before. If we just keep going through till all the figures come up. It's got animation on it, this slide. There we are. So that figure of 28 million, you'll see that's the sort of figure that the council has had to manage over a protracted period of time. So you'll see over that successive period of time that with a roughly 20 million pound gap every year, sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more, but it's in that ballpark. The council has had a cut to its overall budget of around £225 million, so substantial and ongoing cuts to budget that roughly equate to about 20 million a year. Want to move on? So I'm going to just try and give you a bit of detail around the actual financial settlement. I think the hash is on this, apologies if it makes it difficult to read. But you'll see in the first two columns the comparison between the settlement that we were given last year from the Scottish Government and the settlement that we've been given this year. So if I just go through the lines, the ring-fenced revenue funding, we talk about ring-fenced, effectively that's directed towards particular services or priorities. So there's a slight increase in that, a 2.46% increase. The general revenue funding, which covers some of the other services that are outside of education, so basically a lot of your community-based services, you'll see that has increased by about 2.99%. However, even within that general revenue funding, the Scottish Government will direct funding towards its own policy priorities. So that reduces the 21.097 down by 17 million. So the actual impact in terms of free available general revenue funding that can be directed by elected members is that figure of 3.944. So in real terms, that's a 0.5% increase in the council's budget. Now, if you think that the council is managing a number of cost pressures, you'll see that 0.5% increase does not cover adequately the sort of cost pressures that the council is facing. So it's not an increase in our budget. It is pretty much a flat cash settlement for us, and therefore we're still going to be managing those pressures going forward. So if we just want to move on to the next slide, which I think you'll have seen before. This just gives you a reminder of how the budget is actually spent, and around 50% of that budget is in education and families. A lot of that ring-fenced and directed budget is within that area. It's also within health and social care. So the savings we need to make to meet those pressures come out mainly of the enterprise and communities areas at 20% and the chief execs at 8%. So that's only 20% and 8%, so less, just under 30%, where we tend to look for savings, and that's a very difficult thing to do because those services are differentially hit year on year on year. Okay, do you want to move on? This is the detail spread over the 3 years, and what I'll do is I'll start to give you a bit more detail on the 23-24 settlement. So you'll see that budget shortfall. The figure of 1.25% social care levy, that's an increase for us. What that is the UK government reversing its decision to increase national insurance by 1%. So in effect, the financial team had set aside 3.5 million for that increase. It's no longer required because of the reversal of that. So that's 3.5 million that goes into the pot. And you'll see that 6.143 figure, that's the general revenue grant increase that I've talked about. So sorry, that's a decrease. So that's a £28 million gap. So the 37.897 figure benefits from the reversal of that national insurance and that general increase in the revenue grant. So it takes the budget gap down to that figure that I talked about, which is 28.254. The next piece is very important. So the council has already identified and taken certain actions that help to reduce that figure of 28.254. So if we stick with this year, you'll see base budget adjustments that equate to about 6.5 million. So those are actions that the council has taken across its budgets to save around 6.5 million. Those are not savings, they don't impact on staffing or other areas of service. They're just adjustments and or improvements in efficiency that allow us to release funding. So that's 6.5 million that further reduces that 28 down. And then you'll see that use of balances, which is around energy costs. What that is actually drawing down on our reserves. And the financial team have put that in there because that reflects us drawing down from our reserves to be able to cover the cost pressures that we're experiencing across a number of areas, including energy costs, which is why that's in there. So again, that takes your 28 million down by 10.7. So the figure you see at the bottom, the 11.044, is the actual budget gap that elected members were asked to take into the budget decision-making process and to balance that figure. So if we just move on to the next slide. So that's the actual budget saving that had to be considered by elected members, and therefore they had to put forward a proposal that would meet that number. So if I just go through how that number is reduced to zero to get to a balanced budget. So elected members took a clear decision to increase council tax by 5%. That actually generates a figure close to about £8 million. But some of the money that's in that is then ring fenced for the community investment fund, so it takes it down to 6.4. So effectively, council tax allows us to reduce that 11.044 figure down by 6.4. The revenue savings then are the decisions that are made based on the options that were put forward by officers as part of the budget process, and I'll talk in a minute about where that figure of 7.775 came from. But effectively, decisions were made about savings. That reduces it further to 7.775, and we're then in a position where there's a surplus. So effectively, that surplus has been used to make some decisions about investments, which I'll come to in a minute, in specific services and community-based services in particular, and that then means that the budget balance is down to zero. So that's how we get from 11.044 to a balanced budget. We just move on, I'll talk about the investments and the savings. So the savings that have been taken to get to that 7.775 figure are the following. So a review of our early learning and childcare staffing resources now. This is due to the funding that was put in place to fund the expansion of our 1140 hours estate, particularly the staffing side of that. So the funding that was put forward for staffing was aligned to a particular grade of role. Now, historically, our early learning and childcare establishments had a number of posts that were above the grade that is funded, and therefore the service has gone through a significant piece of workforce realignment and change, lots of work with trade unions to achieve that. So that was already agreed. It was due to be put in place over a number of years, and what we've done is accelerate the achievement of that, and that has generated that £3 million saving. That's an ongoing piece of work, working with the staff and the trade unions, so that will realise that 3 million, and that's been taken by elected members. The second one is around devolved school management. So each school has a budget devolved to it. My understanding is there was an opportunity within those devolved school management budgets that were not being fully utilised to take a saving. So that second saving of 1.175 is where that figure comes from. It's actual school-based budgets that will be reduced. And then finally, the more difficult decision for all elected members to make is for the council to move to statutory provision in terms of school transport. What that means in practice is where school transport has been offered for children who are 2 miles away from their destination school, that will now be reduced to the statutory 1 mile, and that is what generates the saving. And there is, I'll pick up some questions on that at a later date, there is a consultation that has now been opened regarding the implementation of that saving, and the consultation will shape how we go forward with that, because obviously at community level there'll be concerns about how that gets implemented. And maybe just stop there. Do you want to just see? I don't think there are any more slides after that, Christine. I think that's the end of it. Yeah. So I'll stop there. I've shared quite a bit of information, but I'm more than happy to take any questions if I can answer them tonight.
Any questions to Fiona? Alan?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, that's okay. It's problems with this microphone. Where the Scottish Government put an extra £570 million into the local governments in the springtime, is that, whereabouts is that in the budget calculation?
So that is reflected in the first slide that was put up, in that the significant amount of that is either for ring-fenced or directed funding. So it doesn't actually give us any benefit in it's for activities that we need to undertake. It doesn't really give us any benefit in the general revenue fund. So we can't allocate it, is I guess what I'm saying to you. We can't allocate it to community-based services because it's directed by the Scottish Government. So my understanding is our allocation of that was around about 70 million. But when you take off the figures that were in that pink slide that was fairly difficult to read, it comes down to a very small amount.
Okay, so it was subsumed into other places in the budget. The second thing is at the budget meeting, the decision was taken with regarding the school transport, and now we see that there is a consultation. Would it not have been advisable to have the consultation first?
I think that was up to elected members to make that decision. The proposal was put forward, and I think they made the decision on the day that they would take the saving. However, I will be clear, and I've taken a clear steer from my colleagues within Education and Families that the consultation will inform the final implementation of that. So in effect, we will not necessarily implement the full saving if the consultation directs us in such a way that certain elements of that are not deliverable without impacting unnecessarily on community. So I suppose that's a roundabout way of saying it has the same effect. We will take consultation seriously and reconsider if required, based on the feedback from community, whether that saving is fully deliverable.
So, right, thank you. So the 3 million or so might not necessarily be realised at the end of the day, so there might be a problem making that up in some time.
Elected members may be asked to reconsider, but it was obviously important to them that full consultation informed any future implementation of that. So just to be clear, it has the same effect as consulting in advance. It's just they were required to balance the budget, and that was a hard decision to make. So,
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions to Fiona? Dennis? You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. It wasn't really a question. It was just to clarify that not all elected members took the option with regards to school transport. It was just to make that clear that there was more than one budget.
Right, thanks, Dennis. Any other questions? I have about 100, Fiona, but I will not go through all these tonight. What I'll do is I'll drop them off to you, and as I said to Christine, maybe meeting with yourself and Christine and Elaine will clarify. Many of them will be dead simple answers, but what is with the reason that we are looking at this budget so closely in the Kilsyth community is that this past year, 22-23 budget, we discovered that the school library service was being taken out. It was being taken as a cut. And that was, and if I remember the time right, it was 2020 that decision was made, long before your time. But and it was classed as a review of the school library service. But then last year it just happened. Right out of the blue, that saving was taken, school libraries were closed. Any librarian who didn't want to take redundancy or early retirement or whatever. They were redeployed, and we'll come to the review of that later on. But the review of devolved school management. Now, what is devolved school management? You're on mute, Fiona.
Sorry, Chair. Each school is given its own budget as part of the Scottish Government's ambition around schools, particularly around the empowerment agenda for schools, that they have their own financial budget to spend. And it's basically around the running of the school. It doesn't include ring-fenced areas, but it does include decisions that are to be made locally around how that funding will be distributed, and that is devolved school management. So my understanding is that budget is not being fully utilised at the moment. So there is an opportunity to take that funding without necessarily impacting on communities.
Right.
It
So
would impact on teacher numbers, I'll be very clear, because I know that's been a controversial area, but it won't impact on staffing.
right, that was the question. It won't impact on teachers or support teachers or office staff or anything in that line. No staffing affected. This is to do with, like, we've been trying to get a new sign up at Kilsyth Academy for several years now. And it's a yellow sign. It's on every other school. Anybody coming to Kilsyth looking for the academy would recognise it by the building, but they certainly wouldn't recognise it for the sign, because the sign has got nothing on it. It's just a yellow piece of metal. And that's the kind of thing that would come out of that budget, I presume, at the end of the day.
That I would need to check, Chair. I suspect the estate is probably part of James McKinstry's remit, but I will check that for you. But the devolved school management, it would be for the running of the school, but I'll certainly check the signage element of that, whether it would be impacted by a reduction in that budget.
Right. On the base budget, on the report that went to the committee last Thursday, last Thursday, remove budget to promote tourism and inward investment in North Lanarkshire, a total saving of 60,000 over the first year. Now, is that meaning that North Lanarkshire won't be promoting tourism in the area?
Is that part of the base budget adjustments? Is that the one that
part of the base budget?
Right.
Yes, it's saying remove the budget.
So that would be a reduction in revenue funding for that team, but I would need to check whether that means that the impact would be on tourism. I will check that for you as a base budget adjustment. I don't have that information tonight, but I will check if that impacts on no promotion of tourism. I suspect not, but I will check. Right.
And one of the other ones, and I don't want to continue them all because I've got that there, but there's one that is concerning, and I can't understand it, is reduce cost of lighting within stairs and closes, a total saving of 32,000 over the first year. How will that cost be reduced within the areas without affecting safety and the intensity of the lighting in the closes? What does that mean? Do you know?
No, I don't, but I can get that information for the board. What I will emphasise is, although these sound like they're impactful, the choices that elected members have made around them is to avoid other cuts that will involve staff reductions and impacts on services. So I will pick up whether that would impact directly on any facility or any, I don't know if it's actually roads or housing. I'll need to check that for you, Chair, because I suspect it's a housing saving that, but I will check it.
Right, well, what we could do is, I've got various things that are queries like that on on the budget, but maybe if we can meet, maybe you could organise it, a meeting with Christine and Elaine, and we could get together round the table or on a WebEx or Teams to go over it. Alan, you're asking a question?
Yes, it's to do with the culture and leisure functions. I notice that it says under active and creative communities, there was an investment of 2 million, but it also says, although there'll be no closures of community facilities in the coming year, there's going to be a thorough investigation of all the facilities in North Lanarkshire. Does that indicate that there are probably some facilities which may be targeted for closure at some time in the future?
So the £2 million that was aligned to that is the reversal of a previous saving, which would have necessarily resulted in that sort of decision, as you've seen in other local authorities who have taken those decisions to close facilities. So the reversal of that saving means we're not immediately in that place, and therefore there will be activity undertaken to review community facilities and usage. So my understanding is that review will look in conjunction with communities at the usage of particular leisure, culture and other community facilities before making any decisions about what we're doing with that estate going forward. But the investment of that £2 million takes the immediate pressure of the culture and leisure service with regard to that kind of saving. So if that gives you some insight into why it's been undertaken that way.
Okay, any other questions to Fiona? Right, okay, we'll get together later on, instead of taking up all the meeting with clarifying things that might be straightforward, but we can get together later on, Fiona. So thanks very much for your presentation and for being able to respond to some of these questions. Sure. You're back on, Fiona. School library provision now, the review. What stage are we at on that?
So I had an up-to-date explanation of where we are from the Education Family Service today. The consultation, I think that I referred to previously, about the school library provision is now closed. The Education Families Service are keen to emphasise that the reduction in staffing for school library provision does not mean that the facilities themselves will be closed. And the focus of that review is going to be looking at alternative ways in which the existing estate, so the library estate, will not be taken away. It's just about how that's supported and staffed and utilised. So the decision following the consultation is that the actual head teacher within the school, appreciate that we're currently operating with an interim head teacher. The head teacher within the school will be asked to come up with a local plan for the utilisation of the library facilities across the school estate. And I would imagine that that's something we may want to bring to the community board at a later date once that decision has been made around how it's to be supported going forward. But as I say, the emphasis is that although the staffing arrangements have been changed, the actual library estate is not going to be closed as a result. So it will still operate as it stands now.
Right, thanks, Fiona. Right, I know you're relaying that information, but the Community Council wrote to the Chief Exec on that very subject, on the school library provision, and we were quite clear that the horse has bolted, as you might say, because the saving's been taken. And then I do know that some high schools around North Lanarkshire have passed the responsibility on to some teachers to manage the library function. in whatever form that may be that they've chosen to do. Yes, and it's I individually, nothing to do with the board or the community council, take great exception to that, because teachers in the schools are heavily committed to teaching. And that's their core function, not running libraries. We have specialist degree courses, same as a teacher does, to run a library provision. And a teacher's not qualified to run a school library. And the solution, what we're doing now is we're saying, what the council, what NLC are saying is, we've taken that cut and we've cut the library, we've made that saving, we've redeployed the librarians to achieve the cut, and we're passing the responsibility to provide a library function in a school to the head teacher. That review should have been done before that library was, these librarians were redeployed or retired. But is there a time scale on when this working group will get back to the community?
So my understanding is the consultation is now closed, so we should expect by the next community board some kind of local update on what the plan would be for Kilsyth. That's certainly something I impressed on the team that we were now looking for, is that detail about how the library provision will be supported locally. So I'll pick that up and make sure something at a local level comes back in terms of the thinking around how the library estate will be still maintained and utilised. I know, Chair, in some areas they're also looking at the use of senior phase pupils, etc. So there are operational models out there that are working, but I will certainly make sure that we get some kind of local sense of how we're going to operate this going forward from the service.
Grant, thanks, Fiona. Is there any questions to Fiona on school library provision? Or has it all been said? Right, okay, thanks very much, Fiona. The following two items, a vision for Kilsyth, i.e. the town centre, the proposed timeline, and the Kilsyth Town Hub, a proposed timeline. Is there any update on that? Fiona, are you?
Yeah.
You're on again.
So right, Bill, you're getting your money's worth tonight. So bear with me on these two. Bear with me on these two items, because they are. I've got quite a sort of comprehensive update, so I just need to work my way through that for the two separate items. There is certainly activity underway aligned to this. There's work underway around the town vision. So if I start with that, so the town vision for Kilsyth, as you know, was approved by the council in September 2021. The team who are taking that forward are at pains to say that town vision has not changed for Kilsyth, and they are taking forward in a phased way now quite detailed town action plans for the 8 towns within North Lanarkshire between 2022 and 2024. So the first phase of that includes town action plans for Airdrie, Motherwell and Wishaw. And those are being prioritised at this time due to the level of investment activity that was already programmed for these towns, and other elements which we'll come to when we talk about the hub in terms of areas of deprivation, etc., and a prioritisation around that. There is going to be a phase 2 of the work, but no decision at this point in time has been taken about the other towns that will be, the other 5 towns that will be progressed in phase 2. But we believe that when they are prioritised for phase 2, that the actual engagement around those town action plans will or could begin as early as May 2023. So if Kilsyth is included in the next phase of town action plans, that will move fairly quickly. It will also involve a further detailed engagement with the community board and workshops, pretty much as they did first time round. So that would then advance your plan to a point where it's signed off by the community. But I can't confirm at this point whether the Kilsyth town plan will be included in that next phase of work.
Right. Okay, thank you. Any questions to Fiona on the town vision? Nope. Right. Okay, Fiona.
So another thing then I wanted to pick up on that, recognising there may be some sort of local frustration around how quickly things can move, is that there is a recognition there's a need for short-term action to improve our town centres, and I know that's very much one of your priorities locally. So there has been a town centre fund which has been established, which will be formally launched in April 2023, and we will notify all community boards. That funding will be available for you to apply for, and it will be within the next planning year, so 23-24, the funding to be secured and spent on your town centre priorities. So hopefully that's a welcome piece of news. I don't have a lot of detail on that at the moment, but hopefully we'll be in a position to share that fairly soon, because obviously that is one of your priorities, and I'm fairly sure you're going to want to be in a position to apply for something within that.
You can guarantee, Fiona, as you're learning, as our community coordinator, that Kilsyth is not slow at going and grabbing money, especially if it's coming from North Lanarkshire Council. So yes, we will wait with abated breath on the announcement for that. Right, before we move off item 3, any further questions to Fiona? Nope. Right, item 4, the Kilsyth Local Outcome Improvement Plan. LOIPs. Right, if I just take the digital inclusion, NL driving digital locally, Alan Stevenson and I are the board's representative on that North Lanarkshire subgroup, and the agreement is that any of the other LOIPs, the other working groups that have digital matters, refer them back to Alan and I, and we'll take them along to that subgroup, to the NL digital subgroup. That there was a document circulated with the papers, and that's a fairly high level document of what's going on around the whole of North Lanarkshire, and the recommendations are clear that we're one of the most active boards and active areas. Out of the 9 boards, there's only 2 got 2 representatives that attend on every meeting. Some boards attend the meeting and many boards don't bother attending. So that causes delays. So Alan and I will continue to process that. But I think the next report that we get from that group, I'll be taken back to them saying, fine, that's okay as a base report, but the next report to the community board, we want to know what's happening in the Kilsyth Community Board area, the Kilsyth and villages. We don't necessarily need to know what's happening down in Wishaw or Airdrie Coat Bridge or that. We need to know what's actually happening in our board area. Based on that report, has anybody got any questions to that report? No? Right, we will take that back to Lynn Gow and the rest, saying that we're all quite happy there. Food and financial security. Christine?
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to say before I go on to the food and financial insecurity update, just to say that there's been some real progress in relation to progressing the LOIT priorities that have been identified by local people. As Bill mentioned there, we circulated an update with the papers that gave people an opportunity to have a look and see what the updates have been in the progress in relation to that. In terms of the food and financial insecurity subgroup, the subgroup is in place and is meeting approximately every 6 to 8 weeks. There's a range of partners involved, including the Tackling Poverty team, Croy Community Hub, One Parent Families, Home Start, Friends of Kilsyth, CLD Youth Work, to name a few. Apologies if I've missed any. Further work is going on to identify other key people who should be in the group, and that's very much part of the discussions that's going on at the moment. The recent meeting took place on Monday the 13th February, and the group is in the process of mapping out activity and relating to financial insecurity across Kilsyth and villages. So what I wanted to say tonight is that if you or any organisations that you're aware of are already doing work in relation to this priority, please let us know. We want to kind of get a clear understanding of what's already happening, and we do have some of that just now through the kind of cost of living community drop-ins, but there's a range of organisations who are doing similar work. So we want to map that out, get a clear understanding of what's going on. So if you are aware, please let them ask anybody you know who's doing that to contact us. They can do that through contacting Community Matters or contact me directly, and we'll make sure that that's recorded as well. One of the other things that I wanted to kind of do, just a wee very brief update. At the last community board meeting, we mentioned that there was going to be a targeted cost of living event, which targeted Kilsyth Primary School, and that took place on the 8th of February. We've given a bit of an update in the report, so you'll be able to see that. But just to say, it was a pretty successful event. There were approximately about 60 parents and carers who came along to that, and there was a range of organisations that kind of came along to provide information and support to local people. Some of them around the table today. We had CLD, we had NHS Lanarkshire, Police, Fire and Rescue, with Cornerstone from Cumbernauld to come down, and they were able to give local people access to vouchers for electricity and things like that as well. Croy Hub were represented, and Tackling Poverty team, and ourselves within the Community Partnership team, but also organisations like Carers Together and Pet Aid were there to provide that support to local people as well. So it was very much a pilot. It worked pretty well because the way it worked was that the school encouraged parents and carers to come in to see their children's work within the school, but also to get access to some information support. And that was seen as very positive and meant that local people were not just coming for that information, but they had another purpose to be there. So that was very, very successful. We also provided period dignity products at the event, and also soup packs for local people to take away with them. So again, that was successful, and as I said, it was a pilot, so there's opportunities to look at similar things across the other schools, but also across other areas within Kilsyth and villages. Bill, Chair, is it okay if I pass you now over to Gabby Mitas? Sorry, it's not Gabby, it's Sharon tonight, isn't it, Sharon?
Sharon. Yes,
Sharon, if you want
yes.
to give us an update on health and wellbeing.
Yep, certainly. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity, everyone. Good evening. For those that don't know me, I'm Sharon Gusman, health improvement practitioner based in Muirhead Clinic. So yeah, for the health and wellbeing, I can confirm that health improvement have supported 2 school events this last quarter. The one that Christine mentioned, Kilsyth Primary, we supported that event by promoting Quit Your Way services to promote stop smoking and its links to the cost of living. And that was a great opportunity to connect with the parents and to network with local partners. And we also supported a second event in the Academy, Kilsyth Academy, and we delivered a sleep, mental health and mood workshop at that for parents. And again, it was a great opportunity to build relationships with the school and to learn more about the community's needs. And I'm also delighted to report that we've our youth diversionary programme called Street Soccer has now started its next 10-week block within Croy. and it just had its first night last Friday, and we had 25 young people in attendance. So that was amazing and a great success. And I can provide a report at the end of that block if anyone's interested. And lastly, we're in the process of delivering some health and wellbeing information packs to all the local community drop-in centres. And these packs just raise awareness of various self-care resources that are available to the community. And that's my update, and happy to take any questions.
Well, I have one,
Yeah.
Sharon. Just, and I see Helen and that is in attendance tonight. One of the things that's taken place in our area is that there are mental health groups starting up. Their chat centres, come along for a chat, or there's a Andy's Man's Club has started up in Kilsyth for men to go along and have a chat. And these are all great and super, because mental health is a major element in our communities now. Is there support there within these groups? Because some of these groups will reach a stage with some of their participants where these groups won't be able to help them. Is there support within that group, a way that they can get help from medical professionals to deal with individuals that want to take their problems further?
Yes, I'd like to say that there will be. It will depend on that individual's needs and what exactly it is they're looking for, Bill. But yeah, I'm happy to have a conversation or be the link to that organisation initially if they're not aware of what support is available to them. We can quite easily make those links for them.
Right. Okay, grand. Thanks, Shan.
No worries. Anyone else? Yeah.
Chair, there's Alan Stevenson's one he's got his
Oh,
hand
right.
up.
So, yes. Right, Alan.
Yeah, I think perhaps this is an opportune moment to say that we've also been through what's called the PPF North, which is a liaison group with Lanarkshire Health Board. We've been working, meeting and discussing various issues with we've met the Chief Executive, Jan Gardner, and we've also met the people who are responsible for running the vaccination service, and bringing up the problems that have emerged with the access to vaccinations within this area. We have got an answer to some of our questions that they might not be satisfactory in terms of how we would like to see vaccinations approached within the area, but certainly that's something we're working on.
Thank you, Alan. Christine?
Thanks, Chair. Can I pass you over now to Camille to give an update on the improved environment with a focus in the town centre? And obviously, Bill and Alan, I know you're both involved in that group as well. Camille, are you? Yeah, I can see you. Yeah.
Hello, Christine. Hello, everyone. Good evening. I've got an update for improving the environment with a focus on Kilsyth Town Centre subgroup. Subgroup is very successful, but scope is very wide. All the actions actually we try to narrow down to share the information about this, what has been done already, because work is ongoing for last couple of years. And on the last subgroup, we discussed a new website for the Kilsyth basically area for those who are looking for information, so the subgroup can share the information that has been gathered actually for last couple of years. So we discussed variety of things like a domain, email, offline marketing as well, a social media strategy, and action points were about actually setting up this. So there's a couple of technical actually details I'm not going to share with you because we don't have that much time. Also, we discussed various accommodation that is available in Kilsyth, which was a boathouse hotel, bar and restaurant, hotels, and pods. So that was we discussed accessibility, and also how you can find information online, how the tourists and whoever is visiting Kilsyth can find that information online. And we talked about local environment and tourism, and close location to John Muir Way and Clyde Canal was discussed, and marketing on bus connections is required. We talked about the red bus at the boathouse to Kilsyth as well, and the information that is needed, and why it's needed, and what sort of information on the tourism should be basically created and also updated and shared on the website. We discussed community magazines that should be published, and that's another action plan for community magazines that would be available both online and offline, and hopefully delivered to people's houses. So that would be something like what's on, or local businesses and things similar to that. Then there were comments on Kilsyth that it's a perfect location because it's a central, pretty much hub to visit Edinburgh and Stirling. Lots of people visiting who are also traveling to those two locations. And we had 2 action points on that about the tourist strategy and North Lancashire to be researched, and confirmation that is required whether there is an existing strategy for Kilsyth and the Kelvin Valley. And we talk about a map of Airbnbs available in Kilsyth, and that also to be created as another action point. So it's quite a lot of actually work basically done, and also scheduled till the next meeting. That was for the improving the environment. Do you have any questions?
No.
No, there's another subgroup. I have a report. So if there's no more questions about this one, we have public and community transport. And that one was all about actually so the first one was bus services and the company's routes and frequency, because there are 11 pretty much buses that operate in Kilsyth, and we discussed bus schedule and how commuters can travel from Glasgow to Kilsyth after actually 7 p.m. It's a challenge. There is almost no buses. Certain buses will go to Cumbernauld, but no to Kilsyth. So that was actually our intention to discuss that. Then there were action points like timetables. We're going to request from the bus operators to discuss this further and actually have evidence of that. Also, taxi service research is required for this sort of actually. It's all about accessing jobs, culture, and shopping in Glasgow, and how people would go back to Kilsyth after 7. And during weekends, there's lots of events, especially in the summer, lots of concerts and things. We talked about how people could really effectively access and actually combat social isolation, travel, and how that would work for them. And it was really hard to find those actually links here. And the next one was about checking what actual actions are within NL are taken basically regarding running the service, and we discuss rail as well, access to Croy, Cumbernauld Station, and the trains, and also community transport, and all the implications and insurance and all the things which could probably affect. We talk about taxi services, and there were actually action points from that as well, listing all the services, including taxi services. There is more. There is cycling. We discussed leisure and work access, bike hire schemes. We discussed this. We are looking for different electric bikes and scooter kind of schemes that were proposed, and that could be actually used within Kilsyth area. And again, mapping is going to happen, is required, and the whole intention was to share this information, prepare in the digital format, and share it on the website for people to see and contribute. Also, we talk about pedestrian and leisure and business actually related access, and there were action points from that too. Again, walking routes to be shared, just like Walking Scotland, where there is a couple of boot symbols depending on the difficulty of the path of for hikers or walkers, whoever is willing to go for an adventure, journey, walk. they would probably want to see this in advance, maybe on their phone. So at the moment, there is nothing like this available, and we are willing to actually move this forward, actually deliver that to the community, because it's a huge need for it. That will make a huge difference when it comes to accessibility, just one click. Then we talk about cars, electric, petrol. These are what's the future in that, how this is going to change. There's lots of details around that, and car sharing again, but because the agenda was very packed, so we discussed to actually move this to the next actual meeting, and there was final was about hospital access, including potential transport links. So not just to Glasgow, but the new Monklands Hospital, and this will be discussed at the PPP. Am I right? PPF, Public Partnership Forum. And two final points were brown signage and around actual Kilsyth, presenting a key attractions around Kilsyth that is required. So this is in plans as well. And we discussed finally live feed for the cameras and biodiversity, so people can actually see beautiful, absolutely stunning area of national well, I don't know, it's national park, but it's Dambrick Marsh, local nature reserve. So to basically share it with the world through live feed cameras. So a lot of discussions, a lot of work, and thank you for listening to this. Are there any questions?
Chair, you're still on mute. I can see your mouth moving there.
I'm saying, how did that happen? Right. Christine, youth engagement?
Okay, thanks, Chair. Just a brief update again. We circulated the information, as I mentioned before. The subgroup is in place and meeting approximately 46 weekly. Partners involved today include the Community Partnership Team, CLD Youth Work. We've got Robert, who's on the meeting, he's involved in that. Who Cares? We've got representatives from Who Cares, and I see Laura's here, which is great. Scottish Fire and Rescue Police. We've invited the homeschool partnership officers from the 2 secondary schools within the catchment area to become involved in that as well. And again, we're doing further work to identify key people who should be involved in the group. The recent meeting took place on the 22nd of February, and the discussions were around the kind of current engagement with young people. How do we currently engage with young people, and looked at the best ways of engaging with young people moving forward. So some of the suggestions are that we are looking to carry out a face-to-face consultation with young people within CLD provision and also within the local secondary school. We're going to start off initially with Kilsyth Academy, make contact with the teaching staff there to look at carrying out a consultation round about March and April. And the idea of that is that it will give us kind of clear understanding about the needs of local young people in relation to some of the priorities for them. So that's something that we're planning and we're preparing that consultation at the moment, and we'll give further feedback on that at future board meetings. I just wanted to also say that, as Bill mentioned before, digital inclusion was very much, that has now been added to each of the actions for the subgroups, and we had a discussion round about that, and there were no updates at this current time in relation to that. But that's not to say that once we consult with young people that there may well be some digital issues that are raised, and we'll make sure that's fed back to Bill and Alan to take to North Lanarkshire Driving Digital Locally subgroup. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Christine. Any questions? No? Christine, do you want to speak to targeted action within identified communities?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just again, very brief update. Myself and Bill have had a conversation in relation to this, and we are planning a meeting with reps from the Community Council to discuss local action in relation to this priority. There has been a number of kind of actions that have taken place locally that has been mentioned in the update. We've had kind of walkabouts in some targeted areas. There's work that we mentioned at the previous board meeting in relation to work around Livingston Park play area and consultation in relation to that. So that's very much targeted. The cost of living event that I mentioned earlier was a kind of targeted provision in relation to kind of parents and carers. So there's a range of things already going on, but we want to look at what are the key issues locally for in relation to the kind of different communities across Kilsyth. So we'll plan that, Bill, aren't we? We're getting a date in the diary for doing that. And
Yes.
we'll be able to kind of update the board at a later date. Just another in relation to targeted communities. I know it's not a particular community, but just to say that, and it'll come under LDP, is just the kind of Auchenstary play area. A number of kind of consultations are taking place locally in relation to these things. And obviously that one was reported at the last meeting as have been opened. So at some point tonight, I'm not saying just now, I've got a wee video to show in relation to that. We might show it after the LDP update, Chair, if that's okay, to just let people see that kind of provision that's now opened near to the Kilsyth area. Thanks, Chair.
Right, thanks, Christine. Any questions to Christine on any of these items? Okay, right. Just next item is partners updates. Fire and rescue, Gary, anything you want to add to your report or say?
Hi, Chair. Sorry, I was just getting myself off mute there. Yeah, I'll just have my wee say here if you don't mind. So in relation to instance, there's not much to report. Our community safety work seems to be getting the message out there, and as a result, we've seen a decline year on year for the same quarter in all instances other than unwanted fire alarm systems, which signals, should I say, which has been an increase. However, 7 of these incidents were all for the same premises. But I believe the premise is now engaging with their engineers to get that, or was engaging at that time, to get the issue resolved. So hopefully the next quarter we'll be looking at a reduction in that. But all in all, incidents are down, so that's great news for us. One of the things we're concentrating and focusing on at the minute is recruitment. Lanarkshire area is currently looking to increase up on call. That's what we call RPS, which is the retained duty system. So on call now, station personnel, we're asking our own SFRS colleagues, full-time support staff and control staff who live within the catchment areas of their retained stations, one being Kilsyth. They're looking for them to get in touch. And I'd also like to extend this invitation to yourselves to inform family or friends who may be eligible to apply. So I'd be happy to put the link in the chat bar, which can be kept for yourselves and passed on. Kilsyth Fire Station, I'm proud to say that it came first in Scotland for the amount of money and weight raised via the charity recycling bins for the Firefitters charity. For the January competition, the station raised £384 with a weight of 1.75 tonnes. So I would appreciate if we can continue to support the community, could continue to support this by binning their unwanted clothes in the recycling bins at the fire station. Because as we know, the Firefighters charity is one that supports injured firefighters, including their families in their time of need. And needless to say, this is probably one of the times where we saw the tragic events through in Edinburgh at the former Jenner's building, where that family will now be supported along with SFRS. But it's just to highlight the importance of that Firefighters charity, and if we can continue to support that with just dumping unwanted clothes, that helps. So other than that, Chair, that's it.
Thanks very much, Gary. And I would say, Gary, that take the board's condolences because of the death of that young fireman in Edinburgh. Nobody should have to go to work expecting and not expect to go home at night. And that's really a sad and most unfortunate situation. So our thoughts are with all you firemen out there and the police who are on the front line, really protecting our communities. So thanks very much, Gary.
No, absolutely. And your thoughts and condolences are appreciated, but it definitely is a stark reminder that the fire service is there, and when they're out doing their business, you know, unfortunately the nature of the business is responding where people are in need. So that is a stark reminder of what can happen. And as I said, brilliant at Kilsyth. They're the station in Scotland at this point in time that's raised the most amount of money for all fire stations. So that's a great effort, and that's the community that's assisted in that. So if we can continue to support that, that would be absolutely fantastic. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Gary. Any questions to Gary? Alan?
Yes, I was just wondering, what's the current position with the uptake of heat and smoke alarms, the integrated systems? Are you still assisting where possible? And do you know if it's the uptake is high within this area, or where are we? Is there any way of sort of assessing that?
So Alan, I can tell you I reviewed our home fire safety visit pending list. I think it was yesterday I had a look at it, and it's very, very low at the minute, which is good because that means the station is targeting the highest. In fact, I sent an email today to the watch commander to ensure we're maintaining that standard and responding to people who are high risk. So in terms of the linked alarms, these are only given out. This is a Scottish Government funded project, and these alarms are only going to high risk people only, and it's people who own their own property. So, for example, someone in a council house, they would be looked after by their organisation, whether it be the local housing association, etc., or if it was a house that was rented from a landlord, it's the landlord's responsibility to put these fire alarms in place. But certainly if there was someone in their owned property who was a referral, we've got a checklist and we go through that checklist, and there's a scoring mechanism at the end of it. So at the end of that scoring mechanism, we would be looking, if they're high risk, then we would be out there fitting the alarms. However, there's also the issue with trying to get these alarms. I've got it's in my report actually, that trying to get a hold of them just due to the getting them. I believe they've come from China, and like all things, it's just all things electronic. It's hard to come by. You get the reports there for you to see. However, what I would say, if there was, for example, an incident and a crew responded and all they had was these linked smoke alarms, and if the house was in a poor state of repair and it was really, really evident that there was other things going on in that property where they were high risk, I would expect that crew to be fitting them if they were on the appliance. I don't know if that helps.
You're on mute, Alan.
That's great, because I think the local authority are doing their fitting in their properties. Do you know if there's any data that's indicating that these things are picking up problems early? Are they more efficient than the previous systems? It's not something you'd want to find out about. You simply wouldn't want them to fire off. But just wondering if you've had any incidents where you could say that they've had a positive effect.
Alan, what I would say is it's very difficult. It's very difficult to monitor that. What I would say is that anything that's linked has got to have a better impact than something that's not linked. So, for example, regardless of the size of your property, but if there's one down the stair and there's one up the stair, and for whatever reason your door's shut, and wherever the other one located down the stair, there's a door separating that part of the house as well, then if that alarm goes off for something that's happening within that room, it will automatically send a signal to the other one, which is going to give that occupant a better opportunity of hearing that call and providing that bit of extra time to make an informed decision as to what actions they can take, how to get out, if it's possible to go through another room, or whether they stay put, call the fire service. But that would be anything that's linked is going to have a more positive a positive response to something that's not. So absolutely, but I don't know how we would monitor that, other than the fact that if there was an incident in a house that had the linked alarms and we get there and it was a result, we can feed that information back into our community action team or take it to our area management team meetings and say, listen, this is having an impact. But there's no doubt about it, it will be. It gives that early warning signal.
Thank you.
Good,
Cheers.
thanks very much, Alan. Thanks very much, Gary. If there's no other questions to Gary, Sergeant McHale for Police Scotland. Good evening.
From ourselves, I'm standing in for Inspector Ray this evening, so I've got a few updates to share with you. The first one's in relation, from the previous meeting, in relation to the quad bikes, Operation Motocross. Recently we've taken delivery of the 2 new quad bikes. They are to be shared between ourselves here in the team and also across our teams at Coatbridge and Airdrie. As it stands, we have 4 officers trained between the 2 teams, with a further 8 awaiting training. They undertake a 3-day training course down in Maybole before they're suitably qualified to utilise the machines. So far they've been deployed in various areas, and just a request really, anybody who's listening and watching, if they've got any issues in their area, they feel that we could utilise the quads for and deploy our officers in those areas, we just ask that they report that into ourselves, so we can deploy appropriately. There was a kind of a media photo shoot done yesterday over at our headquarters in Motherwell, and there'll be some posts on social media in the coming days just to highlight awareness, and obviously just kind of share that we've got now delivery of the quads across our division, and in the coming weeks we're going to look to have an event where we'll invite local councillors to come along, have a look at the quads, and kind of talk over and see what sort of impact they're having and how we're utilising them. Firstly, any questions on that part before I move on to the next part? I think we were looked at to answer in terms of budgets.
Any questions on the motorcocks? Nope. Right, Sergeant, over to you again.
Thanks, Bill. So this part's been prepared for me to just deliver to yourselves. I'll go over it, and again, any questions I'll try my best to answer at the conclusion. Unfortunately, my presentation's not as detailed as Fiona's in terms of the budgets. I'll give you what I've got. So most public sector organisations are eagerly awaiting the finalisation of the formal budget for 23-24, from which ourselves as the police will receive an allocation. In our division in Lanarkshire, we are committed to providing the very best service we possibly can to those who live, work and visit the area, but we can only do so within our given budget. Policing in Scotland is going through unparalleled reform, and in doing so costs of £200 million per annum less than the legacy arrangements. It's on track to deliver cumulative savings in excess of £2 billion by 2026. Pay represents 86% of our revenue budget, and in the event of a real terms cut to our budget, there would undoubtedly be a reduction in officers and staff across Scotland at a time when demand is increasingly complex, and at a time when we seek to protect the communities across Lanarkshire and safeguard the citizens that we serve. Furthermore, if the budget does not accommodate a reasonable annual pay award to mitigate the cost of living crisis, the situation may become even more difficult. If the comparatively modest 5% pay award in 22-23 was not factored into the up-and-coming budget and was replicated in 23-24, it would represent additional inflationary pressure and would require a reduction of around 1,125 officers across Scotland. There will be incredibly hard decisions to make, but we can only do so when we have all the information in the form of an approved budget from the Scottish Government. And as I say, at this time, we're not in receipt of that full confirmation. That's all I have to share at this time.
Any questions to Sergeant McHale? Sergeant, could you maybe tell me again on what that gross saving and the timescale it was? Did I hear you right by saying it was a couple of billion?
The information I have in front of me here says it's on track to deliver cumulative savings of in excess of £2 billion by 2026.
2 billion? by 2026. Right. Aye, a lot of pound notes in that one.
Certainly is.
Yes. Right, well, thank you very much, Sergeant, for the time and that information you've given us. I look forward to seeing how the quad bikes start to bring these hot rods under control. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Sharon, the report from the health improvement team. Have you got that?
Yeah, I don't have really anything else to add to that unless anyone's got any questions. That was the report was produced by Gabby and sent out with the minutes in the paper.
Any
I'm happy
questions
to ask
to
and answer
Sharon?
any questions?
No. Well, I've got a couple.
Okay.
The Play Talk Read bus,
Mhm.
it's visiting Moodiesburn. Do you know if it'll visit Kilsyth or that in the
Yeah,
near future?
Yeah, what happens is we have one allocation per year for that particular
Right.
service that comes. So like everything else that we get, we're having to share that between Kilsyth, the Northern Corridor and Cumbernauld.
Right.
So this year it's gone to Moodiesburn. So in future years it will go to Cumbernauld
Elsewhere.
and Kilsyth.
Who actually provides it? So you must pay it.
It's a Scottish government. No, it's the Scottish government provides the bus, and they ask Health Improvement to support the process and allocation of sites.
All right.
So it's been in Kilsyth before. I remember it being down in the Burn Green.
Right.
It has been there before.
Grand. Right. That was the only other thing. That was the only thing that I had, and I wonder, is it possible to have that report orientated to what's happening in your operation in Kilsyth, in the community board area, Kilsyth and villages, or is
So we can try, Bill. I'm not sure what you're asking here. That report is an overview of Health Improvement's public health priorities. So that's what we're sort of measured on, and we try to cover everything that we're doing, and
so
it's used for Kilsyth, Cumbernauld, and the Northern Corridor. And are you asking for that to be?
So what are you actually doing? What's the health improvement team actually doing in the Kilsyth and villages community board area?
Okay, well, yeah, I gave that update earlier on what we were doing in terms of the two inputs that we did in the primary school. And we are also issuing the packs to the community drop-ins and street soccer as well.
Right, so all that's
all
coming. You, as part of the LOIP, you've tied in what's happening locally,
yeah,
rather than through your report.
yeah.
Right, that's okay.
Does that make sense? Okay.
I fully understand that. Yeah, grand. Thanks, Sharon.
Okay.
Right. Vanel? Callum? Camille? No, he's not here.
Yes, Bill. Hello. I believe that
yes, there you are.
an update has been sent, so it's not much really to add if you have any questions.
Any questions to Camille on his report? No? Right. Thank you very much, Camille, for that interesting read. Believe it or not, I do read all these things.
That's great. I think it's a couple of pages, but it's quite concise, so I'm not going to read it. Okay.
Grand. Item 5, Community Matters. Christine, community drop-in points.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just wanted to say that the cost of living community drop-ins that are funded through NLC continue to operate across 6 venues in Kilsyth and villages, providing much needed support to local people. Period dignity products have been circulated to the drop-ins and that's been very successful. Lots of local people are accessing that provision. We've had kind of updates in relation to the number of people that have been accessing the services, and this is in relation to the December stats. There were up to approximately 320 people supported in the Kilsyth and villages areas in December alone. And we receive feedback on a regular basis in relation to how the community drop-ins are developing. And I noticed that we've got Helen Anderson on the call. I know Helen's one of the organisations that is providing a community drop-in in Kilsyth area. Helen, is there anything you want to add to that, just in relation to your own experience?
No, Christine, we found last Thursday, we had a head count of 70 people come through the door, 70. Now, that was including, obviously, we've started a play group as well. And that was the most in the one day. But saying that, you know, we go by what food we give out. And within half an hour, one day, we had given like 36 hot rolls away in half an hour. Some days it could be really, really quiet. We're finding more people taking advantage of coming to get advice for things. We have Heather, Councillor Brannon McVeigh comes down every Thursday now, and anyone has any housing problems, any benefit problems, she's able to take them to a room and, you know, help them out that way. We're actually going to open up again on a Saturday afternoon where it'll be a hot meal and a games afternoon as well. Following on for that, you know, I don't think it could stop. It's just it has to carry on. You know.
That's great, Helen. Thanks for that update. And just in addition, Helen's obviously the Friends of Kilsyth, but there's also community drop-ins in Kilsyth Community Church, in Holy Cross and Church Hall in Croy, St Patrick's Church, Church of God in Kilsyth, and the Croy Community Hub. So if local people are looking for places to go, that information is still available on the interactive map. But certainly I've been down to Helen's services down there, and they've got all of the information about all of the hubs in there as well. So they're very much publicising all of the services that are available to local people. And so I just want to say kind of well done to all the volunteers that are supporting these initiatives locally, because lots and lots of local people are getting access to that service and are really benefiting from it as well. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Christine. The item contextual safeguarding, Andrew Gillis who's going to present that. Are we?
I'm thinking it might be Nicole Nicole Savage, sorry.
Oh, Nicole,
right.
It says, it's all right. Thanks very much, Chair and Christine. It's myself, and I'm not going to take up too much of your time. I'm coming tonight with a couple of asks, I suppose. The first one is that I've sent out a presentation, which I'm not going to go through, because I would rather just people can understood who I am and what I'm asking, rather than just kind of be faced with words. The first ask is that people do take a chance just to look at one of the videos that's included on the presentation. It's around 4 minutes long, and it's called "Did You See That Coming?" That video is it's been created by Surrey Police, and it's a demonstration, I suppose, of the harms that young people can be faced with within their communities, which can lead to significant child protection concerns, including exploitation. But what I really want to draw people's attention to, I suppose, is that the fact that the people that are having that direct interface with are members of the community. So it's people that are taxi drivers, hoteliers, people that work in local shops. So these are the people that are kind of seeing things that are happening and maybe not know who to report things to. So I'm part of a multi-agency team within North Lanarkshire Council. I'm a senior officer in education and families, and I'm a frontline children, families and child protection social worker. So what we've been doing within North Lanarkshire is that we're the first council in Scotland to be implementing something called contextual safeguarding. And because that's quite a difficult term for people to get their heads round, what the second ask I've got tonight is that we are supported to have a one-off community board where we ask board members to come along to a one-off evening to find out more about contextual safeguarding and how we as community members disrupt harm that's happening in our communities rather than shifting the issue on or creating further risk and harm for young people. So the video should just give you a demonstration of some of the pressures that teenagers and young people in our communities are facing. They're very different than even when I was a teenager. And I suppose we need to understand what their narratives and perspectives are in order that we can safeguard and help them, but also how much the community does see and how much they can help. And so I suppose what we need to do is join up the dots within the communities to see who has got the community guardianship and how to improve safety for young people. So that's the only way we'll do that is by reaching out to communities and actually finding out what their strengths are, but also helping them to identify the risks and make things a wee bit better. So that's my two asks. Please just look at the presentation and look at the video. It won't take you long. Everybody's got either children, grandchildren, young people that they might be concerned about in today's kind of modern world. And I suppose it's just having the knowledge of what can we do as a collective community to make things safer for our young people. So that's what my passion is. And it means kind of reaching out to people that ordinarily wouldn't be part of child protection. I've had Andrew Gillies, who I was meant to be here tonight. He's a senior education and families manager, but I've had him down to speaking to the managers of McDonald's because they're the people that are seeing the young people and try to give them some kind of information and material on trauma and also how we engage with young people. How do we get them to trust us for them to tell us what's going on for them? So that's my two asks. Please look at the presentation. And second one is support us to have another kind of one-off community board and please attend and get other people to attend that as well. So any questions, absolutely happy to answer, but also material I can send on if people want to know a wee bit more before committing.
Any questions to Nicole? No, I must admit, Nicole, I did look at your presentation, but I never picked up about the video. So that's on the agenda for tomorrow sometime.
No worries, no, that's great, thank you.
Alan, you got a question?
Yes, I imagine that digital safety and digital problems must be part and parcel of what you're doing.
It is, it's a minefield, to be honest, and it's something that we're continually having to get our heads round. In order for us to work with young people, we have to understand what's going on for them. And what we're seeing is a kind of direct correlation in people's behaviours when they are faced with things like perhaps they've been groomed online, and we're seeing a number of different behavioural changes that could be picked up on by people. And we're supporting people to then try and get the trust of the young people to disclose what's happening. But that guilt and that shame of actually admitting that they've been or feeling that they've been party of something is really difficult, and you can see why young people don't particularly disclose. And if we do see these kind of behavioural changes, what we're trying to do is just get them to have one relationship with one trusted person, and that's where we kind of get into kind of figure out what's going on. But the digital world is it's very scary, I suppose, and it's got a lasting legacy and imprint. It's not like when we were potentially younger and we did something when we were our teenage years and it was maybe learned from and forgotten. The children that are growing up in today's society just now, it's online and it's posted and it's reposted and it's shared. And I suppose the mental health implications after that are really quite serious and worrying as well. So it's quite an ambitious project, and we do have a lot of support from different universities. So we have kind of created something called a theory of change, which is looked at what are young people, what kind of risks are young people within our communities just now facing, and how do we disrupt that harm? So we've kind of put that in a document, which I don't mind putting in the chat. But again, it is quite ambitious because we are upending structures and systems, and we're doing it with very little money. It's on the kind of collective capacity of people that just want change. They want things to be better. I'm from North Lanarkshire. I grew up in North Lanarkshire and I'm raising a child in North Lanarkshire, so I'm invested, and so are the other people that are kind of part of this. So this is only my third kind of community board that I've attended, and I'm learning lots from even being here. So I think that's the thing, we need to learn from one another to then use that kind of collective knowledge to make things better, I suppose.
Cool.
Thank you.
Right.
I was just wondering if digital safety is something that we might refer to the digital working group, Bill.
Good idea. Yes. Yeah. We could talk about that tomorrow, and we'll make a note. Yes. And obviously we need to start discussing with the council about making further savings so we can transfer that money into your event.
That would be lovely. Yes, no. And I was really interested to hear as well about the community engagement with young people, because actually this is where contextual safeguarding came from originally within the council, was that young people were communicating to their schools that they didn't feel safe in their community. So this is where this is all kind of stemmed from. Was a piece of work that was undertaken in 2017. So if the community within kind of Kilsyth and roundabout are engaging with young people, I'd be really keen to hear that kind of feedback so that we can use that to try and link up what we're already doing and even some of the things that we can offer. Because I'm working with schools, I'm working with the police really closely, I'm working in health. We're everywhere just now because that's where risk is. And that's where I suppose we need to kind of build up people's confidence to see the signs of exploitation and then have the confidence about knowing what to do about it.
Mm-hmm. So that's a good point, Christine and Robert, to be involved in Nicole and maybe your presentations or your discussions with the kids. Yeah?
Definitely. Yep. I think Chair Robert's got his hand up.
Robert, yes.
I think it's just to bring to the board's attention that there's a new kind of online counselling and mental health service launched today by North Lanarkshire Council. My understanding is it's quite brief. I've got an information workshop next week to let us know a wee bit more, but reading off what I have in front of me here, it's North Lanarkshire Council has commissioned an online wellbeing service for young people called Kilsyth. It's being delivered by Kilsyth, and it's an integral component in North Lanarkshire's mental health provision for young people. So I don't know a lot about it. I'm going to be attending the practitioners training next Tuesday, I believe the 7th of March, but it was launched today. It's Kilsyth. Just when we're talking about digital services and young people's mental health and things like that, it's there to support, and it's commissioned by North Lanarkshire Council in partnership with Kilsyth. So I just thought it would maybe useful to highlight to the board.
Yeah, thank you very much, Robert. Nicole?
Just to put on that as well, that was co-produced and procured by young people. So it was a service that young people asked for. And so that is something that my colleague, I've been beside my colleagues, she's been doing the work for it. And Laura Campbell has been involved by accessing the young people to have their reviews. But just to add on to that, I suppose when we're talking about kind of the digital world, that particular piece of work where it's called Kilsyth, it's a kind of 24/7 forum for young people to speak to people that would be qualified to be able to kind of put them in the right direction of what support they might need. And that is because young people don't particularly tend to go into clinical environments for support. It's not where they feel safe enough to go to. So this is what this has kind of been developed, and that's, I suppose, what we want to do is to create services that are directly that basically young people would use, rather than creating something they won't use and spending money on that. So this service has been co-produced by the young people, and it's meant to meet the needs, because we're all aware that there's kind of quite a lot of waiting lists for mental health services, but there's young people that are in need. So this is an opportunity for them to kind of get some information about and support in the meantime. So thanks a lot for saying that, Robert, as well, because it's good to link all these different pieces of work up and why we're doing them, I suppose. So thanks for that.
Thanks, Nicole. It's interesting to see the connection through the roots through. There's Laura, you, Robert, etc., and it's all integrated in. How are you spelling Kilsyth?
I think it's KOOTH.
KOOTH.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Myself and Christine are linked up, and so are Matt. Matt's on the steering group for contextual safeguarding as well. So just to give him credit as well, because he's been there since the beginning.
Excellent, excellent. You see, I was spelling couth in the old Scottish terms. I with a C, COUTH. Right. Okay. Right. Any other questions to Nicole? No. Right. Thank you very much, Nicole, and everybody who's been involved. 6, Christine, local engagement / consultation.
Yeah, this is just it. This is a standing item on the agenda just for an opportunity for local groups and organisations and partners to update in any consultation or engagement that's taking place. We have already mentioned about the consultation that we're planning to do with young people, and definitely as Nicole said, I very much want to kind of link up with yourselves and the work that you're doing in relation to that to make sure that we're asking the right questions of young people as well and gathering the information that we need as well in relation to that. Just one other engagement update is that Livingston Park Group, we had a very good update from the volunteers that are involved in developing Livingston Park Play Park at the last board meeting, just to say that is now out to tender, and there will be further consultation in relation to that as soon as we have confirmation that the tender has gone through. So just to let you know that is in progress, and we will feed further information back to the board in relation to that. And just if there's anybody else that's doing any consultation locally that wants to kind of share that, the opportunity is there to put that forward. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Christine. Anybody else want to participate in that one? Question to Christine or? No, right. Funding opportunities, Christine?
Thanks, Chair. Just to remind everyone that Recover NL funding is still available. Closing date for that fund is the 16th of March. And just to say that Kilsyth has been, I think what we had previously 5 projects that have been funded through Recover NL funding, and another couple of applications have gone on recently. But just to remind everyone that even groups who have applied before can reapply. So the funding is there. It's to purchase materials and equipment to support small environmental projects locally. So if you're aware of any groups or organisations locally who are carrying out that type of work, please ask them to put forward an application to the Recover NL fund. Just another quick update in relation to funding as well. The Health and Social Care Consortium funding is still available. If there's any kind of groups and organisations in the Kilsyth area that would like to apply for that funding, the host for that fund is CASE in Cumbernauld, and I think we previously circulated information in application forums. If you think that would be helpful, then we can recirculate that to make sure that community groups and organisations have got access to that. But please think about applying, and I know Bill said earlier, Kilsyth really likes to apply, so let's make sure we're getting as many applications as possible. And I don't know if Fiona was going to cover this in her update, but just to remind people that the fuel hardship payment is available through North Lanarkshire Council. The closing date for that is the 31st of March. That was extended. I gave an update on that at the last board meeting. But again, we want to make sure as many local people as possible are accessing that funding. It's for people who are working on low income, and it's money to support people during the cost of living crisis. So please share that information widely and encourage people to put applications in for that. And just finally on that, Camille might be able to give a bit more information on this, but there is a funding newsletter. It's a quarterly newsletter that's circulated through VanL, and local groups and organisations can sign up to that. So please, Camille, can you give a kind of contact for that if you have one, and make sure that if local groups haven't already signed up, then they can do. That's me.
Yeah,
Thanks
sure,
very
Christine.
much. Chair.
Let me just go and get an email to Grant, and I'm going to put it in the chat.
Right, while Camille's putting that contact details in the chat bar, Is anybody got any questions on that subject? Nope. Right. Okay. Fiona, Community Coordinators update.
I don't have a huge amount, Chair. I'll just add a little bit of information to what Christine's just shared about the fuel hardship payment. I believe we have dropped the income threshold on that to encourage more people also to apply for that payment, and obviously remembering that the UK government's support for people in terms of their bills is obviously going to come to an end in April, so we would encourage people to use the fuel hardship payment, and as Christine says, it's actually been extended, so I think there's been less uptake on that than we expected, and therefore there's funding available, so we absolutely should be promoting that for individuals who are families, particularly who are on low income, who may get a hit after April when the UK government scheme stops. The only other thing I wanted to raise here is obviously to do with the ongoing teachers' strikes. That obviously will be having an impact locally on the community. There's no significant progress at this moment in time, although there are very positive talks on teacher strikes. You'll be aware that all schools have been closed today, and they were also closed yesterday. So we understand that the trade unions have indicated there are further strikes ahead. We have no confirmation. We have no notification as a local authority as yet from any of the teachers' trade unions of any further strikes ahead. So just to let you know that we're not aware that will be included in that localised level of strike that they were talking about if you're listening to the BBC News, and we're hopeful that there'll be no further strikes and that we'll come to some kind of closure on the teachers' trade unions. But happy to take any questions on that. But no strikes ahead as we know, apart from the last 2 days.
Thank you, Fiona. Any questions to Fiona? We okay? Nope. Thanks very much, Fiona. Local Development Programme, the LDP. Matt or Christine?
Thanks, Chair. Maybe kick off with that. It's just this is a report that's part of the standing items on the agenda for the community board, and it was issued with the papers. The report's just to be noted, and the progress in relation to the projects acknowledged at this stage. If there's any particular questions or any details you want clarified on, then just please let us know, and we'll pass you over to Christine regarding the video, etc. Thank you.
Any questions? Nope. I had a discussion with Christine the other day about it, and obviously the next board meeting there'll be less projects on because some of these are coming off. Excellent.
I would just say, Chair, that if local people or community groups and organisations have got any ideas for potential projects, we would be happy in the first instance to have a conversation with them and look at potentially putting forward any kind of proposals in relation to LDP funding. So certainly we're happy to have that conversation with anybody that's got any ideas locally. And if you can bear with me, I'll try and find the presentation or the update, if that's okay. It's on here somewhere. I just need to find what it's under.
Just while you're looking for that, Fiona, that we could maybe have a wee chat, maybe along with Christine or Matt, that the LDP might be a place to start off the Burn Green Park, the recreation park project. So we could maybe have a wee bit chat about that later on. Yes. Yeah.
Sorry, give me a second. I should be able to share that now. So hopefully everybody's now had a chance to see what the new play park is like at Auchenstary. It gives you a kind of bird's eye view that you would probably wouldn't be able to see unless it was taken via a drone. So it was just to let you know that that's where it's at just now, and it's now fully open, and it's been reported as being really, really busy with children accessing the site as well. So so that's my update. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Christine. I was delighted to see Alan Stevenson and Councillor Johnston on the swings there. Yes, helping each other. Yes, yes. I pass it on a regular basis, and weekends and in the last 2 days, because the schools have been off, you couldn't have parked a toddler's push bike in the car park. It was busy, busy, busy. People coming from all over, and that presentation, we'll have a wee chat with you, Christine. We're developing a Visit Kilsyth YouTube site for flyovers like that, and it might be that we could slot that one into it as well. Yes, good. Any other competent business from anybody?
Chair, apologies, it's me again. I've got just one very short update that I've been asked to provide. Just to let you know that at the beginning of April, North Lanarkshire will be inviting people in groups to respond to a survey asking their views on the quantity, quality and accessibility of open space and play opportunities in North Lanarkshire. This is part of North Lanarkshire Council starting to develop its ambitious open space strategy. And further information about this will be circulated in due course. Thanks very much, Chair.
Oh, I look forward to that one, Christine. Yes. Right. Anything else? Well, our next meeting is Wednesday, the 31st May 2023 at 6:30 p.m. I would thank everybody for coming. And if there's anybody still watching on YouTube, thank you for spending the time to watch us get through a whole load of business tonight. So, and thank everybody for their participation. And I will catch up with you all before the 23rd of May. Yes.
Chair, I've just noticed Matt Costello has his hand up.
Sorry, Chair, just very briefly before you finish up, just to advise people we are moving towards hybrid meetings, and hopefully the next meeting, if things go to plan with our technical, the work we're trying to undertake to get the technical infrastructure in place, they will move to a community setting for the meeting, and hopefully that will be taking place in the next cycle. Can't guarantee it at this stage, but we're certainly working towards it, and we'll keep you informed. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Matt. Yeah. Right. I look forward to hopefully seeing you all in face to face on the 23rd. Okay. Good night.
Good night. Thanks, Chair.
Good night. Thanks, Chair.